Hello, my yarn smithing lovelies once again. We're here in my studio in central UK. Welcome to this, which is the second part of Don't Buy Yarn Without Watching this video first. This one is all about acrylics. Stay tuned. So first of all, in reference to the last video, the last one, if you didn't see that, part one was about wool yarn for knitting. I did have a comment to say that this person took issue with my description of the difference between worsted yarn or yarn made by the worsted method and yarn made by the woolen method. They're the two main methods used in industry for producing yarn, not just wool, but lots of other yarns as well. And so one, thank you very much for correcting me. Number two, pop over to the Woolmark website. Woolmark is kind of the industry standard for quality wool. People, if you don't know, have the Woolmark on the label if it comes up to certain standards. Their description of whether it's made by the woolen method or the worsted method, the yarn is kind of virtually the same as my description was. So perhaps you've got issues with them as well. This person describes themselves as a spinner. So I've asked if they would kindly let me know where I can buy the yarn that they're manufacturing so that I can come on and give it, of course, an honest review on this channel. Anyway, can't think of any other stuff we had. For people who don't know, if you've not seen before, I usually comment on any kind of negative comments that we get, any hate. I always leave it up there so that everybody can go. If you look in the comments, I don't delete anything. It's all there. I don't care. Keep it coming. So anyway, today's subject, acrylic yarn. So we'll probably get some hate now for this. I use acrylic quite a bit for lots of different reasons. When I'm working on new patterns and working on new stitch patterns, all kinds of things, acrylic is really cheap mostly. So therefore I buy it for that reason. I try and buy wherever I can recycled or repurposed yarn, or I repurpose it myself rather than putting that acrylic into landfill. A bit more about that later. But from the point of view of somebody who gets through a huge amount of yarn, if you keep your eye on the shelves back here, this is the yarn that I use for when I'm doing research and when I'm doing making new patterns and all kinds of stuff. I get through a huge amount of yarn, and from a purely financial point of view, more often than not I'll use acrylics. Then when we're on to the real thing, I'll use better quality wool. In saying that, that sounds like acrylic isn't quality. It is. It's just different from using man-made fibres and the higher quality things. That's me waffling on. again about that. So acrylic. Um, the controversy with acrylics is kind of where it comes from, what it's made from. It's a byproduct of the petrochemical industry. It's truly a man-made yarn. It's made from it's kind of a Mexican concoction of all kinds of horrible chemicals, vinyl acetate and methyl acrylate. When they're mixed together and extruded, it comes under the categorization of polyacrylonitrile yarns. I'm trying to trying to pronounce it correctly because I know there's going to be hate. Oh, you didn't say that properly. I'll type it up here so you can see what it is. So the way it's done, those chemicals are put in a bath of all kinds of horrible things, and it makes a gel type thing. And in industry, it's called dope, and the dope is then extruded through tiny little holes, stretched. Then it goes through one of two processes. It's either wet manufactured, which it goes through a bath of chemicals, which sets those extruded polymers into it hardens them, and then they stretched out. Or it goes through like a hot air and a gas system. That's not used quite so often now. The wet version, when it goes through chemicals, a lot of the factories now have started to recycle those chemicals and use them again and again and again, which is slightly better for the environment, but they're still nasty chemicals. They're still really toxic. Some of the chemicals that are used are carcinogenic. However, there's no evidence to say that wearing acrylic is carcinogenic when it's against your skin. Some people will say otherwise, but look at the evidence. That's all I say. So after we've got this extruded, I'm trying to think of an analogy of something that I can explain how it is. You know, if you boil sugar and you're making caramel strands and stretch, that's what it looks like. It's all these tiny little extrusions. That's probably nothing like what it is. I ought to have done a bit more research and found some filmed stock of it being done, but you kind of get the idea. Then that's treated in lots of different ways, because acrylic you can make into lots of different looking fibers. So we can make acrylic look like lots of different things, and that depends on the next processes that it's going through, whether it's crimped to make it kind of wavy. That means when those fibers are spun together, there's lots of air trapped in, whether they leave it in a single strand and keep it silky, and then that looks very smooth and shiny. There's all kinds of things that it goes through. What happens then is those filaments are chopped into little strands, and then it goes through a very similar process to how other yarns like wool and cotton, etc., are produced. Those go through machines that twist them together and make yarn. So biggest manufacturers of acrylic yarns, China and Turkey. Whether you want to buy from there or not, people come back with all kinds of things every time I mention China, and I really don't know what the problem is. with it. They tell me all kinds of things. Oh, they use child labour and they do this. Okay, they might. Don't buy it then. It's quite simple. If you've got problems with countries where things are being manufactured, you know, just show your disregard for those products and just don't buy them. It's very simple indeed. So one of the problems that I find or bothers me using acrylic yarns is the fact that, you know, when we throw those away, when we discard them, they take an awful long time to break down in the environment. It is also said that when we wash an acrylic garment, it releases microplastics into the environment and into the sea and our waterways. The wearing the acrylic yarns, especially when it's made a bit fluffy to imitate things like mohair or fake fur, which acrylic yarns is. They also make wigs out of it as well, actually. Just thought I'd throw that in. That we're breathing in microplastics and all that kind of stuff. So that is a consideration. It is something to think about when you're using them. Acrylic is quite difficult to recycle. You can't turn it back into the polymers, the raw fibre that is created chemically. However, what you can do with acrylic garments is it's kind of chop them up and put them through you know, carders and all kinds of machines and re-spin that yarn. When that happens, it's a little bit weaker, so you tend to find recycled acrylic yarns blended with other fibres like wool, cotton, whatever. Case in point, here's one of those. This is by Woolcraft. It's Woolcraft Esteem, and this is like what, $1.99 for 100 grams. This is made from it says acrylic blend. When they're chopping up jumpers and all that kind of stuff to make it, it's quite difficult for them to know exactly what's in there, so they'll put acrylic blend, so it's blended with other fibres. That's very nice to work with, and also rather than that acrylic going into landfill, we're reusing it, we're going to repurpose it. There is a difference between repurposed yarn and recycled yarn, and also a lot of, in inverted commas, recycled acrylic. It's never actually converted into yarn. It's the waste product that's made at the chemical processing plants that in the old days would be thrown away. Now they're actually turning that into yarn as well. So when they say recycled, just look very carefully on the label and just have a little check to see what they mean by that. So some of my favourites are, there's the one I've just showed you, the recycled one. Yarnsmiths Create acrylic comes in loads of different colours. It comes in different yarn weights, 4-ply, DK, Aran. Yarn weights I'm going to talk about in another video. I've had a couple of questions about that because we in the UK use different terminology. In industry we use a numbering system, so that's the same worldwide. I'll talk about that in the next video. But you know, have a little look at yarnsmiths. People say to me, how can I tell kind of what the weight of that yarn or the thickness of that yarn is? In general, just have a look and see what needle size they recommend, and that'll give you an idea. There's loads more ways of testing that, how many twists per or wraps per inch and all kinds of stuff. But again, I will talk about that, I promise. At a later date I'll make a different video. So Yarnsmiths Create Aran from the Wool Warehouse I really like. I also like, and can I find it? Probably not. There it is. Stylecraft, they do a recycled wool and acrylic mix. They're both reclaimed recycled fibres. This I use quite a lot, and I actually, make jumpers for husband and family and all kinds of stuff out of this. It knits beautifully. Stitch definition is lovely. It washes the whole thing, and because it's recycled and repurposed, I'm stopping that fibre from going into landfill. So we've only scratched the surface. This is what I'm saying on this little series of videos, that I'm just giving a tiny insight into the yarns that you're using, and how they're made, and any damage to the environment, etc. Ethically, it's entirely up to you what yarn you use. I'm not particularly recommending or saying you should use any particular type. Not everybody can afford yarn at the high end, and sometimes for a 50-gram ball you're paying £15 and upwards. I've actually got some stuff on there that was that kind of price, and whilst that's nice to knit with, a jumper in that is going to cost you anything up to like £250 just for the raw materials to knit. So not everybody can afford to do that. So in that instance, ethically, I don't have a problem with using the acrylics, just if you kind of keep in mind the the damage to the environment it's causing, and how you feel about that ethically. There's a lot of natural fibres. People say, I'm going to use this particular natural fibre or whatever. They are actually much more harmful to the environment in their production than acrylic is. So, before you make the comments, just do a little bit of research first. Get your facts straight. That's what I'd say. So, if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. That really does help out the channel. I also have another channel over on Patreon that we're building a lovely community over there. I keep mentioning it. Where are the men? Come on. The men watch this, because actually YouTube do tell us about the demographic. They do tell us who's watching and all that kind of stuff. And I know that there are some men watching now. I'm talking to you. Anyway, so I'll put the Patreon details up there. There's lots going on. Just go and have a little look and see if you think it's worth joining. You can join as a free member and keep a check out of what's going on, but you can also become a paid member for like £5 a month. Some countries do charge a little bit of tax on that, some don't. So in the meantime, again, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next in the series. We're going to touch on natural fibres, in inverted commas, like silk and cotton and bamboo. We're going to touch on man-made fibres, in inverted commas, and I say that because a lot of people don't realise that yarns like rayon, for example, are made from wood pulp. There's a lot of eucalyptus rayon at the moment, which is, eucalyptus grows very quickly, so it's sustainable. It's a sustainable product. So when I say, don't use man-made, rayon's actually natural fibre. Anyway, we'll talk about that in another video. So in the meantime, happy yarn smithing. Very much love as always. and I'm going to see you really soon. Bye bye.